This is Christina Barr, and you're watching Black Tea News. Hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we are going to be talking about some really bad takes over the weekend with the decision with Roe v. Wade and Casey being overturned, which was the correct decision. If you were paying attention, if you know anything about law and the legal system and etc., then it really should have been no surprise. But people have lost their mind, and some people pushing the rhetoric you can really blame. But you know what? I was pondering today, and there's a lot of people who really genuinely feel like a right was taken away from them, and it's like the world fell away from their feet. And if they don't understand that the unborn are alive, and some of these, I don't know, people don't, and you might be saying that's wild. It's just the case, but then you probably would be distraught. So shame on the people who pushed this sort of lie upon them for all these years. But we're talking about some hot takes from people who should know better, who just had some really awful takes. But that's not all. Health Secretary Xavier Becerra, he was being interviewed, and apparently he's working with Planned Parenthoods and other groups to see how the government can pay for women to have abortions across like state lines. And they're like, "Is that legal?" And he's like, "I have to get back with you." And he's like, "I can't say such and such because it's recording." And it's like, bruh, that's bad. So bad. It's amazing how people wanted to have Biden back for norms, but they're not into norms. They just are very extreme on their side, and they don't care about rule of law. They don't care about overthrowing the government like they do in a sort of stealthy way. The people calling for Supreme Court justices and so on to be impeached and all kinds of other nonsense because they don't have real faith in our institutions. It's just really absurd. It's just really absurd. So we're gonna talk about that. Also, there was a Pride parade in Seattle, and where the Boy Scouts were marching, and then there were naked riders, like literal naked riders. And I just have like a screenshot. I'm not gonna play the video for you guys, but it's pretty wild. It's pretty wild. So, but before we jump into everything, I want to encourage you guys to go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on my website, all kinds of articles and all sorts of other things. Make sure that you guys check out different merchandise that I have. I do have merchandise to celebrate what happened at the courts. I have a bunch of pro-life. I must have accidentally deleted it off my thing. Hold on. Bear with me. Bear with me. Here we go. I totally must accidentally deleted it from my prep. Huzzah. That's it. We got the Roe and Casey aborted shirts and life wins. So you guys can pick that up at blacktnews.com. I do have other pro-life stuff as well, like the My Money, My Business shirt, which this is so relevant today because people are saying, the talking point used to be abortion is just between the mother and the doctor. People will still say that today. That's what they'll say. And they'll say you don't have to pay for abortions. They don't let you pay for abortions. I will literally show you a video today of our health secretary, who, by the way, sued nuns. That's probably why he's the health secretary now, because he's sued nuns over abortion. He was rewarded. He was rewarded with that position probably because he sued nuns. That's why he's there. I'm telling you. And they want to use government money to pay for women to go to travel within different states in order to get their abortions, which is really dystopian. It's so dystopian folks. So that's where we're at. So when people say it's just between you and your doctor, it's not true. It's not true for in regards to what they're proposing, and it wasn't true for Little Sisters of the Poor or Hobby Lobby. So there really is no, you're free to stay out of it. That doesn't exist, and it never existed. And I know everybody doesn't want to feel like they have to fight all the time, but honestly, you got to take a side, or someone will take advantage of you, period. If you like what I do here at blacktnews.com, consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate. Anything you guys can do to support, I very much appreciate it. There are costs with the streaming and running the site, travel, all sorts of other things that I do. And if you would like to support, again, much appreciated. If you cannot, I know times are tough. Make sure that you guys are liking, that you're subscribing, that you guys are sharing, that you are telling other people to watch Black Teen News. I very much appreciate all that you do. I'm in the studio at the Brighton, Michigan Pack, and I appreciate them always. If I say something today that triggers you, they don't care. I don't care. It doesn't work like that. But I'm just glad to be in here. And by the way, there will be a debate this week with all 5 candidates running for governor who are on the ballot anyway, um, after the whole kerfuffle, which we've talked about how some people's signatures were bad and a lot of people got booted. But there will be a debate that the PAC is putting on this week on Thursday, and you will be able to watch it streamed from my channel. So make sure that you guys are liking it. And if you know someone from Michigan who maybe doesn't always watch the show, let them know that, hey, this is a place where they'll be able to see all that stuff. So I'm excited for it all to go down and to see who will rise and who will fall and all that kind of good stuff. Should be good entertainment, but also obviously informative, at least we hope. Anyway, let's jump into the news of the day. You guys know that I like to start with a meme, and we'll start with this. BLM Summer of Love, January 6th, and this person stepping over it. And he says a riot is the voice of the unheard. So going right to women's rights. So BLM Summer of Love was fine. And women's rights was fine, but January 6th is like the most egregious thing that's ever happened in history. So we did see some protests, and actually I do have a video to show of what happened in Arizona at the Capitol, where the people had to evacuate. There was, I don't have a video to show you guys of kind of the uproar on the streets, but there was some protests, and the White House, to their credit, did say, hey, we don't condone that stuff. I wish they had said, we will put you all in jail for a long time to the fullest extent of the law, we will punish you if you do those sorts of things. But that's not what they said, and frankly, I don't think that's what they want. I don't think they want as much unrest as there was in 2020, because of course Biden is president and makes him look bad. But I think this division is ultimately what a lot of people in high levels of power, or people pulling a lot of strings, ultimately want. So let me go ahead and just play that video for you guys with the madness, with them having to exit the building.
Please listen. We are going to recess. We're going into recess right now, okay? We have a security problem outside. Members, please go. Stop. We're recessed. Members, please.
Yep, so they're doing their thing, and they got to evacuate, and there are people beating on the glass. There was people out in the streets, and like there's like a canister of smoke they shot into the crowd, and just really, really ridiculous. But people feel entitled to behave in that sort of manner. Now, as I said, there are a lot of people who feel like the earth was just removed from underneath their feet, and people keep saying this was a right they had for 50 years. Whenever has this happened? And it's like, well, people owned slaves for a very long time, and you guess they were very upset when they lost their right to their slaves, you know. And you can say it's not comparable. Oh, I think there's a lot of ways that it's comparable, and I've gone through that before, and I can go into more in depth later. But a lot of people use like similar reasoning when they defend abortion. It's kind of odd to me that people can't see the correlation. But the point of mentioning it is, yes, there have been times when we've had bad things in our country where people's rights were violated, and people are like, you know what, that's actually very bad. We have to undo that because you don't have a right to just infringe on other people's rights. So whether it was slavery, and now we have, you shouldn't infringe on other people's rights to life, especially since it's not listed in the Constitution, and we cannot uphold this on a federal level. And it was always a mistake. That's what the ruling said. It was very, very stern in that. So people who keep pushing that we've lost a constitutional right, um, who know better. Frankly, there's people who know better. There's people who are saying it who aren't aware and they feel genuinely robbed, but there's other people who are pushing it knowing that the rhetoric is just heated rhetoric, and it's enraging a very uneducated population. So many people are upset about Roe v. Wade, probably agree that abortion should happen at past 15 weeks, or they're not aware of how developed a 15-week baby is. You know, they can sense light. Like if you like hold up a flash, like a light or something to it, they can like move around and sense where it is at 15 weeks. They have fingernails. If it's a baby girl, like her ovaries already have millions of eggs in there. So you're pregnant with your child, and your future grandchild's egg is like somewhere in there too. It's pretty remarkable. Yeah, so there's a lot of people who are very uneducated fighting for something that they frankly don't understand. And hopefully this will be a time, there's a lot of intense feelings right now, but perhaps a lot of people will learn. And you know what? We cannot just allow people to just scream their hatred around and just kind of let people be to their own devices. We have to engage constructively with folks. My sister told me a story on Sunday, and she said there was a young girl she used to go to school with. I guess they're not that young, but I guess 2 years younger than me. Um, and so she had said on social media she would rather die than be pregnant. And you could like go out, like argue or whatever harsh in the comments, like that's crazy, you're a baby killer and all that other kind of stuff. But my sister, and she doesn't realize how wise and smart, mature, and full of the grace of God, the Lord that she has. She doesn't realize how awesome she is. But she reached out to her and she said, "Hey, I don't want to judge or anything, but I just kind of want to know where you're coming from." And so they go back and forth, and my sister lets her know about when she was last pregnant with her child Noah, and just empathize with her and said, well, the woman said didn't want to be a single woman with a baby, etc. And when she told me that, in my head, like bells are going off. Like, why are you a single woman with a child? Like, why can't you just like decide to like marry a man? And then, so my mind is like going off to like there are ways where you can still cut her down. And my sister's like, just she engages in this patient conversation with her, and so she opens up about when she was last pregnant, and she's like, I parenthood isn't always very easy, and she opens up about how she had all this anxiety because her doctors want to have her to have a C-section. Everyone's like, girl, you ain't gotta have a C-section. But she was really afraid of going into labor because she's already had a C-section, and people and doctors or whatever say that you shouldn't have another one. And so she was just kind of I don't know, torturing herself mentally about what she should do, and everyone's doesn't understand. And then she talked to other people who had children who aren't sharing that same kind of anxiety that she had, or can't relate to it quite. So she felt really alone in it. So she eventually broke down to her nurse, and her nurse was like, scheduled C-section is very different than a C-section that you have when it's an emergency. And so she had to have a C-section with her daughter Serena because I guess she wouldn't put her hands down or something like that. So they had to do a C-section because it could have like messed up the baby and stuff. So she So they had an emergency C-section. So the nurse lets her know, like, you were traumatized when that happened. And so once she realized, that it was a traumatic experience, and I guess kind of had that permission to be like kind of justified in that, she felt a lot better. And in the work, and they scheduled a C-section because she said it's a lot different when you come in and they prepare you for it rather than like we gotta do, it's a whole different thing. So that really helped her. But anyway, so opening up about her struggles with parenthood, the woman she was going back and forth with thanked her because she's like, everybody acts like it's, so just wonderful all the time, but she's like, but I love my children. My children are a blessing, etc. So anyway, the young woman, she started the conversation not from a place of judgment. She empathized with her, and the woman ended up opening up that she was probably felt this way because she had abuse growing up. So you gotta understand that there's some people out here who have these intense feelings because not just because they are demons, you know. And sometimes you see people and you're like, what is wrong with them? They look like hateful monsters. But some of these people are really, really hurting. So questions you might want to ask people sometimes is why do you feel like you need this? We can have the conversations about when life begins and why they should have a right and the balance between bodily autonomy from the mother and the baby. But people need to know, and the left really, really loves coming from the side of empathy, and they really don't think that our side has any. It is important for people to know that you care for the child, but you do sincerely care for the mother. So I think a big question that could really make a big difference is, uh, how did we get here? But why do you really feel like you need this so badly? Because I've heard mothers, they kept playing like the same interviews on the radio like all week. And there'd be like a mother saying, "Oh, I'm very concerned about my daughters. I'm very concerned about my," and I'm like, "You concerned about your daughters killing your grandchildren?" That's what's going through my head. But I'm just like, why would women say this? And they might say something to the regards of, answer might be like, well, I'm concerned if my daughter, gets raped or something, that she'll have to carry the child. I'm like, okay, so if that's like a major fear, because again, if you're unaware, rape accounts for less than 1% of actual abortions that happen. But if women do have a big fear going around that they are just going to be raped like that, what can we do to at least put women in to protect them? How can we protect the woman? Because we don't want that to happen and lead to this situation that we're discussing. That's such a big area of contention within this whole debate. What can we do like prior to make sure that this doesn't happen? Like, can we make sure that she's armed, that this never happens? That if she's in an alleyway in the middle of the night or something for some reason, that she's armed to the teeth and he will not walk away alive after trying her. Like, what ways can we protect women so this sort of thing doesn't happen? And does that include also giving harsher penalties to men to who do these sort of things? What conversation can we have there so we don't get to this point? Like, try to hear people's concerns and try to find, is there some other option? Is there some kind of solution other than abortion? So I'm just challenging everyone to be a little bit more thoughtful with their conversations with people, and try to find, abortion is a symptom of a lot of different ailments for our society. And if you look at the numbers and the reasons why people have abortions, I think that's evident. And are you going to say like, "Oh, Christina, do you mean like because people can't afford the babies?" I not really. That I think that plays a part to it. But if you look at like the numbers, because people say we need more education, other stuff like that, the women who have abortions, I think more than 80% of them maybe is like between the ages of 20 and 40, if I'm not mistaken. So education's not a problem. And even if they say it's financial, um, that doesn't mean that you can't survive. Maybe things will be uncomfortable. So what can we do to revitalize a family structure? Because life would be better and easier for people if we did find a way to kind of get back to a two-parent home thing. It's kind of reversing. You hear people, girls saying that they're concerned about hookup culture. There are all kinds of crazy TikToks about it. Like, and that's a good thing. That's what I was hoping, that women would be more considerate about who they choose to engage with. But one reason why we do have so much abortion is because there's women who feel like they can take more risks, and they have that option to not be stuck with a baby with someone that they don't want to have a baby with. So abortion is a huge moral issue, but there's a reason why we have so much more and why our rate is so high. And last thing before I start playing all these crazy videos that I want to respond to, that I want to say is, if you are pro-life, make sure that you have your arguments together on why you affirm life. Because they'll try to put you in the ringer. There's one girl on TikTok, she switched sides, and she would always talk about how bad pro-lifers were arguing. So now she's using the same arguments that she would debunk all the time. But other people aren't sure quite how to combat that. So I've been trying to get on the same live as her like multiple times this week. It's so annoying. But anyway, I want to play this video from Sarah. It's really wild.
You doing concretely in response to the court's decision to try to help women?
Well, we're working with centers like Planned Parenthood, so we are restoring funding for Title X, Family Planning Services. We are working with supporters on the ground to make sure that we are providing services to women where we can. We are looking into everything, including assisting in transportation, something that HHS doesn't typically do.
Can you do that legally?
Talk to me later.
Talk to me later, he says, which says to me, they're, regardless of whether they think it's legal or not, because at first the White House was saying they weren't going to do vaccine mandates with the OSHA mandates and all the other kind of stuff, but they found a way, and it still wasn't legal, got shot down in the court. But they're going to push it. They're going to find a reason to push it. So is it legal? That's a question he doesn't want to answer out in the open right now. He said, talk to me later. They're going to find a justification whether it's legal or not. That's just how these people are. If you're unaware of Sarah, he sued the Little Sisters of the Poor. Now you could say he didn't sue the Little Sisters of the Poor. He sued the Trump administration. Yes, and the Trump administration was protecting the Little Sisters of the Poor. So yes, he did sue nuns. So he should not be in the position that he is in. There obviously were people more qualified because he doesn't have a background in health like this. But he was rewarded for his evil. That's what these people do. So that's why he has his job. So people who think that abortion is just between the mother and the doctor, it's not true, because our federal government is really, really involved, not in trying to solve in a way that we don't need abortion, which, remember, in 2006, Joe Biden said abortion isn't a right, it's a tragedy. And he'd prefer if like women didn't feel like they needed one. Now they're just like, we have to make sure there's so much access for people to be able to do this. And it doesn't make sense, because in our world, technology has evolved so much. You know, our line of viability can, as technology increases, it's babies are more likely to survive at earlier dates. You might find a baby who can survive at 21 weeks instead of like 24 weeks. Um, and it might get earlier depending on technology. There might be a time when we have artificial wombs, which I know, I think there's moral dilemmas with that as well. Like, I don't know, maybe I've seen Fringe or too many TV shows, but that I don't like where maybe that'll go. But we've had inventions like the sonogram and all sorts of other things where people should understand that abortion is a huge moral dilemma. It's a huge moral wrong. And as a matter of fact, most people think that it is. There was this Gallup poll that came out, and so it says Black Americans uh, morality percentage acceptable in 2001 2007 was at 31%, and for non-Black people it was at 41%. And so 2017 to 2022 it was at 46% for Black Americans and 43%. And so as far as abortion being legal in under any circumstances, Black American support used to be at 24%. Now it's at 32%, which is I know it's heinous at all, but these are not majority numbers. And so it was 25 to 27. So, oh gosh, man, they've really done a number on Black Americans, man. They really have. But this still isn't a majority opinion. Most people do find it to be immoral. And I'm not even everyone understands the embryology, but to some degree, people understand that it is immoral. So, should our government be doing all that they can to make sure that this thing survives? I'm not talking about trying to keep it from happening legally, but to work so diligently to make sure that women are aided in this process. By the way, it's also gross that these companies are saying, instead of like expanding maternity leave, they're saying, hey, we are going to help you get to where you need to go so you can kill your baby and then you come back to work. like that is way more dystopian than anything like in The Handmaid's Tale or that, that people are saying. Like Tim Pool, he noted, he like tweeted out, by the way, we are not paying for women to go have abortions, but in our at my company, we will pay for like maternity leave. I think maybe as long as the woman or the man or whatever feels that they need to do it. That's pretty generous. Not everybody can run their company like that, but you got to be the change that you want to be. And if you're saying, hey, we're going to make sure that we help you go across state lines so you can take care of your little problem, that is sick. Again, ask yourself, is there any other way that we can help a woman besides abortion? Now, some people don't want the help and they really, really do want the abortion. There was one young woman I was going back and forth on TikTok with, and so she claimed that she was about to get her abortion, and I think she was at 12 weeks. I'm like, do you know how advanced a 12-week baby is? Like all of its major organs have already started to form. And so she's like, well, I'm in school and I'd have to do, I don't know if I can do both and etc. I'm just like, okay, just like, how about I'm going to follow you and I'm going to DM you and I'm going to try to get you some help and all this other kind of stuff. And then she was like, I'm just going to block you because I feel like you're pressuring me now. And then she blocked me. And she did whatever she decided to do. So some people out there, I don't know, are just going to be gung-ho that that's a decision that they want to make because they don't want to have to go through the pregnancy. Or frankly, there's people who believe that an abortion is like a blank slate. And in those sorts of cases, I don't think we should uphold the institution of abortion for them. But in the case of other people who need some help or have some other kind of solution and would genuinely be open to that, we need to be open to helping people like that. But even before they get there, we need to ask, how did you get to this situation, this circumstance where you feel that the best option for you is to take another person's life. And what other solution can we come to besides you doing that? These are questions that I wish the government was asking rather than how can we get you to point A to point B, but legally. But that is the Biden administration for you right now. That is the Biden administration for you right now. The Biden, which also we went over on Friday, that the Biden administration, Merrick Garland, the DOJ, they're like, we don't respect this decision with the Supreme Court. And they also announced the one the day before that they didn't respect the one and they disagreed with the overturning of the New York law where you had to prove or something to get a concealed carry that you needed it for self-defense. And so they are all wild in. They don't care about norms. They don't care about institutions. But I want to go through some. Let me talk about this Pride Parade really quick. And then we'll go into some really, really bad takes that I saw over the weekend. I'm not going to talk about this long. This Pride Parade thing, but let me start off by saying yesterday I had a conversation with my nephew at church, after church. And I just brought up like how I have a following and people watch my stuff, and I have on TikTok, they were playing with my numbers and stuff. But anyway, on TikTok, on one account, I have 90,000 followers. On another one, I have almost 30. And so a lot of people watch me there. And then I have like 17,000 on Facebook. And so he was just like, he watches like Ryan all the time and stuff. So he was, kind of wants to be like a YouTube celebrity. And so he was kind of excited that I had a following and stuff. So he started asking questions about Black teen news. And so he's like, is it something that kids can watch? And I said, not really. And he's like, why can't kids watch it? And I'm just like, it's just a lot of issues and different things that you may not understand. It's just kind of complex. And sometimes we talk about bad things that people do. And I did mention that, sometimes I might have to play a video that might have a bad word in it. He's like, you say bad words? I'm like, I don't say bad words. I'm like, I try to blurt them out. I said, I actually have a special machine that will blurt out. And then I felt like I was kind of go down a rabbit hole with him because he was just like, and I'm like, I don't say the words. And I'm like, sometimes it's a little too much cut. But anyway, I'm like, it's not really for kids. And I didn't think he'd really like it too much, but what really why it's not for kids is that sometimes we do have to talk about dark and twisted and perverse things. So this is one of them. So there was a Seattle Pride Parade, which I don't know what's up with that state, man. But Boy Scouts were marching in the parade. And then at the same parade, naked bikers were riding around in front of the children with nothing, like they legitly naked. And it wasn't appropriate for me to play the video, so you can thank me. but that's the sort of thing that happened. And you know what? There's all sorts of degeneracy at these events. I don't know why people take their kids to these things. But last year, the Washington Post, they had an op-ed about how kids should see kink. And as a matter of fact, I read a little bit of the article during my show. So there are people who do want their kids to see these perverse things because they feel like that is part of their community and an expression of their community. Now, there's a lot of people in the LGBT that are just like, we just wanted to go to the hospital without being asked 20 different questions. And to be married and stuff. Like we just wanted a way to file our taxes better. Like we don't want all this stuff, and we don't want to be associated with all this stuff and this creepy groomer stuff with all the sort of stigmas about pedophilia and other things like that. Like they said we don't want all this stuff. There's plenty of really normal people out in this world who just like people of a different persuasion. And they don't want to be tied in this stuff. I know a lot of people and follow quite a few people who would never go to these things anymore, or maybe never have. But this is really, really disgusting. And a friend of mine did a video, and he played some of the video of the bikers, And he's like, well, I know you guys are probably going to mass report it, not because they thought it was so inappropriate, but because people don't want to be made aware of the kind of filth that goes on. And I don't know, I don't even know if his video is up for like 30 minutes. They mass reported it like he knew they would. And so he just did another video like, hey, it got taken down. You can go watch it here. And I'll always remember this comment someone said in defense of Black T News. And they said, I wish half the things she said weren't true. Because there's some dark stuff that we talk about and have to address on this thing. Oh, that's a funny comment. They always think everybody wants to see their shortcomings. That is funny. That is funny. That's a good comment. Okay. I want to play some of these really, really bad responses to Roe v. Wade. So first, in no particular order, I want to do top 10 or something like that, but I couldn't get it all together. So here's a couple. Maybe we'll pepper them throughout the week or something. So the artist of Green Day decided that he was going to renounce his citizenship over abortion. So he was at a concert and he said, F America. And he was going to renounce his citizenship. And he said that at the concert over the SCOTUS ruling of Roe v. Wade. The Daily Mail in the UK reported it. Now, there's a couple stupid things about this other than the obvious, but we're going to go with the fact that in Europe they have very strict laws on abortion, and they are not as extreme. So you had Macron of France weighing in about, people thinking that America's going backwards and stuff. And in France, it'd be 14 weeks. The Dobbs case was 15 weeks. That pushed to overturn Roe v. Wade. So it's pretty amazing to have all these people weigh in and think that America is so bad when we are been so egregiously progressive with abortion to a rate that doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense why a rate of abortion is so high. And it's land of opportunity where so many people are educated, where so many people have access to abortion. But he says, hey, I'm going to renounce it. So what, you're going to live in the UK where they have less rights on that? And by the way, you're like a 50-year-old dude, man. Why? Sometimes it's really gross how these men are so hard up for defending abortion. Man, the person, I can't think of his name, with the CEO of Barstool Sports, he did a video talking about abortion, and he didn't like Roe v. Wade getting overturned, and Mike Cernovich just lit into him and was basically like, you're a rich, handsome dude who wants to just, he said something like, blow through young women who've been like addicted to pornography and abused in all kinds of other ways. And I think it just kind of means like from our society or whatever. And he's like, this sort of defense of abortion isn't, and this sort of culture isn't progressive. It's the fall of civilization or something like that, paraphrasing. But it was a really like dang sort of tweet where he just told him off in such a stunning fashion. So that's the first crazy one that I want to show you. This is another one that is heinous. So there's this picture going around at a protest of this mother with her children, I suppose, and I'm assuming that's dad. And it says, don't force this on anyone. Do you not love your kids, man? Like I'm aware motherhood, fatherhood can be difficult, but what is more rewarding than bringing up a child and raising a little human watching their lives, how does that not give you meaning? It's a lot more meaningful than, I mean, being a celebrity, doing movies, being a pretend, playing pretend for the rest of your life, a job that's where you're replaceable, being some kind of paralegal where everyone else can do the same job that you do. Not everyone can be those children's mother or father. Like, people can fill in roles that would be, you know, kind of like it as far as like male energy or feminine influence and stuff, but they have two parents and no one else can replace you. So just go there and have this sign, don't force this on anyone. Who's 99% of abortions are from consensual relationships, or consensual relations rather. Who is forcing what? Who is forcing what on people? And those kids are small. You know, it was such a monumental thing that happened this weekend, and part of me like wanted to be, just I was talk about it forever, I suppose. Very excited about it. And part of me wish I could have shared the moment with like my nephew and stuff, but I'm just like, he's too young. I wouldn't want to traumatize him with what abortion is. I know how they'd react. They would be floored and horrified that someone would do that to a baby, especially since their mom was just pregnant and had a baby. So that they wouldn't be able to grasp with how someone could justify that. So, I mean, that's another topic where I'm just like, Black Tea News is not a show for you, Danny. So the idea or the fact that someone would bring their kids to something like this, holding this sign, as if these children with them are the greatest burden to society, is just wackadoodle. And it's sad. Yeah, these kids look so precious, especially that little boy. But this is what they decided to do. Like, you could have left your kids at home or just had a different sign, at least. In the very least. In the very least. I don't know what kind of message you're trying to send other than you regret your life, or when people use the words force, by the way, I always push back hard. Like, what do you mean by that precisely? Like, can you specifically explain how I'm forcing something that you consented to, that is happening naturally? Like, how, if I wasn't involved, if I said nothing, if I did nothing, if no one did nothing, that baby's coming out. So how am I forcing you? Like, and of course they don't have a good rational reason for them saying that. It's just language that makes them feel better because they want you to be the aggressor and they don't want to accept that they're the aggressor. So yeah, bad takes. Now we're going to get to some ones that maybe you've seen because these have been pretty viral. Oh gosh, where do we start? Let's start with Fox News, where they have their resident Democrat.
Protecting the life of the mother. Some of these states are going to have no exceptions for rape.
Hold on, not sure what's happening.
Protecting the life of the mother. Some of these states are going to have no exceptions for rape. Hard to believe for the conservatives on TV. I saw Ted Cruz on earlier, touting the ruling that if one of Ted Cruz's daughters got pregnant because she was raped, or God forbid, an uncle or someone got her pregnant, that he wouldn't do everything in his power to make sure that his daughter didn't have to carry that baby to term. The hypocrisy is beyond comprehension here. Republican women get pregnant too. And I'm not saying we can't have a conversation about 15 weeks or 20 weeks. I know a lot of people who are pro-choice have numbers like that, but
okay, first of all, how can it be hypocrisy unless she knows that he would agree and want his daughter to get an abortion? So it's not hypocrisy unless Ted Cruz would be like, "Oh yeah, if it was my child, I would make sure that that my grandchild would be yeeted out of this world." So it's not hypocrisy unless you know something I don't. People bringing up what if your child was raped, especially saying Ted Cruz's daughters, and throwing out that it would be an uncle is just so absurdly perverse. And I don't understand the sort of, I don't know, morally bankruptness of it, to throw that out for what, shock value? Do you, I mean, if you believe that it is a life, and I'll have that debate with her. Why does she think that the baby deserves to die and not the uncle? Why does she think the uncle should have more dignity and rights than that innocent child? Why does she believe that? I think that's what I tweeted at her. I think that's what I tweet, because I sure enough did tweet it, retweet it, and I wish I could have got a response, but I I wish I could have been on that panel, because and so people, and she's supposed to be so reasonable, but that was just an emotional. It was emotional drivel that just went absolutely too far. Yes, said Jessica Tarlov believes a child rapist deserves more rights and dignity afforded to them than an innocent unborn children. These people are ghouls, man. To just utter that on air, as if that's an okay thing to say. So that's my first one. Well, not my first video of showing you guys some really bad takes. This one is worse. This one got a lot of play.
The mother before, during, and after the child.
And I am not anybody to tell you what you need to do with your life or with your uterus. And because I have a family with a lot of special needs kids, I have a brother who's 57 and has the mental and motor skills of a 1-year-old. And I know what that means financially, emotionally, physically for a family. And I know not all families can do it. And I have a step granddaughter who was born with Down syndrome. And you know what? It is very difficult in Florida to get services. It is not as easy as it sounds on paper. And I've got another step grandson who is very autistic, who has autism, and it is incredible. And their mothers and people who are in that society, who are in that community, will tell you that they've considered suicide, because that's how difficult it is to get help, because that's how lonely they feel, because they can't get other jobs, because they have financial issues, because the care that they're able to give their other children suffers. And so why can I be Catholic and still think this is a wrong decision? Because I'm American. I'm Catholic inside the church. I'm Catholic when it comes to me. But there's a lot of Americans who are not Catholic and are not Christian and are not Baptist. And you have no damn right to tell them what they should do with their bodies. Nobody does.
Ladies, obviously it's a very emotional time.
So a lot to unpack there. So FYI, Anna believes that people took her out of context. Now, I didn't interrupt. I let you guys listen to that whole little rant. The subject is abortion. So Anna, who is supposed to be Republican, and she's on The View spewing her stuff like every day. Does she sound very Republican to you? I don't think so. Trump broke her brain, or I don't know if it was just him or whatever, but she's on totally irrational, the dark side, and she just needs to stop. What Republican values are you even standing up for anymore? You can't even be happy that Roe v. Wade is overturned, and you're Catholic. You just threw everything out, the baby and the bathwater. Maybe you throw out the bathwater first and said, "Oh, baby, what's this still doing here?" And just like, first and foremost, the topic is abortion. And then she goes and starts ranting about her family, people with Down syndrome and other sorts of special needs. So the only thing to assume from the context of the conversation is that women should be able to decide that if their child is special needs or handicapped in some kind of way, they should be able to have some kind of eugenics reason for killing their child. What other way are we supposed to interpret what she said? That wasn't a I empathize with women in these situations. That is a women I sympathize with women in these situations, therefore they should be able to have an abortion if they so choose. Which there are some countries where like people with Down syndrome are basically like extinct. Like people find out that they have a Down syndrome and then they will terminate the life. Which, by the way, I don't disagree that a lot of people feel that they cannot do it. It is can be a burden to people, financially and time and patience and all sorts of other things. Sometimes children are a challenge, and sometimes some are bigger challenges than others, and sometimes those big challenges offer the bigger blessings. But one thing to note, people with Down syndrome, there was a survey done. Nearly 99% with people with Down syndrome indicated that they are happy with their lives. 97% liked who they are. 96% liked how they looked. Nearly 99% of people with Down syndrome expressed love for their families, and 97% liked their brothers and sisters. And these people who are very happy with their lives and express a lot of love for the people around them, mothers should be able to get tests and say, hey, my child has Down syndrome. I don't think I can do that and terminate them. My sister, I think when she was pregnant with her second child, they asked if she wanted to have the test, and she's like, I'm not going to kill my baby, so what does it matter? And they were just kind of taken aback. They do like try to charge you up the wazoos for these tests. So she was first baby, she had a lot of tests. Second one, she's like, I'm just only doing what's necessary. But FYI, one thing that I learned at the March for Life rally, I knew that there were people waiting, like an abundance of people waiting to adopt, but there's also people waiting to adopt people with also disabilities as well. So your child is unwanted. Someone will take in your baby. So Anna going off being like, I have family that's disabled. So yeah, you should be able to take out your kids. You don't want them if they're too big of a burden. She could have just apologized, but she was like, you guys are taking everything out of context. I played it for you guys. You're aware of the context. She's gaslighting you. She is gaslighting you. And the whole purpose of eugenics is population control. And they didn't like the poor, they didn't like minorities, they didn't like people who they deemed feeble-minded. If you want to get rid of people, or you think it's okay to get rid of people because they're disabled, because of your financial status, all these other sort of things, I think that's immoral. I think it's immoral. And people could always find a way and a reason to discriminate against you. So really, really bad take from Anna there. Oh, but before I move on, you're not living your faith appropriately if you're just living it silently. And people vote for their beliefs all the time. And for people to expect Christians to just check that off somewhere and to not vote at the ballot box with that, I'm not a Christian because I'm bored. And I've said this many times. I'm a Christian because I believe, well, and I believe, that Jesus Christ is my savior, but all the other kind of stuff. But I believe the principles and things that are taught in the Bible are things that are good for my life, everyone else's life. I can't force you to be a Christian. But if I think these things are moral good and are right for the world, then why wouldn't I incorporate those things in how I vote? It doesn't make sense. People want you to pay for their health care. People want you to pay for, they say things like, we need to raise the minimum wage. No one should have to work without having a living wage. Why? That's because you believe that. Because you believe that. There's no rule out there or something that is established, but people just believe it so strongly. Now, probably because it really benefits them. If you keep raising their wages, of course, that will messes up things down the line, especially for companies that can't afford that. But they don't care because they believe so strongly that no one should have to work 2 jobs, etc. Now, that doesn't make any sense to me. Sometimes life is hard. And you got to do what you got to do. Maybe you got to give a side hustle until you can get something going on. But they'll make everyone else have to bend to their whims because that's what they believe. So people can enforce those kinds of things, but you can't say, hey, it's wrong to kill a baby. And you don't even have to bring your faith into that. That bothers me so much. You don't not have to bring your faith to that and be like, well, I'm a Christian and I'm Catholic and I still believe that a woman should be able to do that. Who cares? It's not relevant. They don't intersect. So you just want to feel special and be like, I'm the edgy Christian. You love me. Because there's no correlation with your Christianity and what you're advocating for. So you didn't even have to bring it up. That's what Warnock does. Like, I'm a pro-choice pastor. You might as well say, I'm pro-life and I like pineapples on pizza. Like, they're not correlating with each other. And she's a bad Catholic, but that's... And if you don't understand all the reasons why, I do have an article on blacktnews.com called, Of Course the Bible is Blatantly Against Abortion. So you can go ahead and check that out. I also have other articles regarding the topic. But let me move on because there's another one that's kind of fresh that I want to play for you guys.
Because I will say that is one thing that friends of mine, pro-life friends of mine, conservative lawyers of mine, and others underlined. It wasn't just the holding, taking away a fundamental right over the past 50 years. They found the tone to be confrontational, and anyone who has followed the Supreme Court, anyone who has read constitutional law, knows that most justices, especially in landmark decisions, bend over backwards to explain how this is not a radical move. This is we are moving forward and we're moving in the direction that this country's been moving in, and we understand their problems, but this is, and they'll round off some of the harsher edges. They will give something to their opponents, their legal or ideological opponents. There was none of that there. I've got to say, more than any Supreme Court decision I've ever read, it was even the language. There was a violence to the reasoning. We win, you lose. Yeah. We're taking away these rights, and there's nothing you can do about it. Please, if somebody disagrees with me, please let me know where a court has overruled a right that's been in place for 50 years and done so in such an aggressive manner with absolutely no grace and absolutely no outreach to their legal or ideological opponents.
So, oh boy. Earlier I mentioned how there are people very irresponsibly saying things like it was a right. Joe's one of them, which, by the way, he's considers himself an independent now. Mika must got some good stuff, if you know what I'm talking about, to make him say such egregious sort of stupid stuff. But now he's not a Republican. Now he's just an independent. And always complaining about the Republicans that I know, etc. Blah, blah, blah. He knows that it's not a right. And in normal circumstances, if you go back to like life, I'm sure before 2016 or before 20 or within 2016, I don't know that Joe would. I'm pretty sure he would have been happier, or at least pretended to be a little happier. But these people have made such fandoms on him and Anna. They've made such fandoms on hating Trump that it's moved beyond that, and they have an audience that they have to appease. Now, maybe their brains are so broken that they have warped to supporting these ideologies, but they don't need to call themselves Republicans or anything like that, which he doesn't anymore. But it's just such a warped sort of turn that he's had. Now, it's not the court's job to soften you up. It was a terrible ruling. It's always been a terrible ruling, and they were straightforward about how they said that, certainly. But the justices who disagreed, they have not been coy with how wrong they think it is or how bad it is to overturn these things. Now, the only person who was like squishy in is considering like, oh, look at the sort of repercussions are with going so big with this is Roberts. But the only logical option was to take down Roe and Casey. If you paid attention to the rulings at all, they didn't even make good there is no constitutional case for keeping Roe v. Wade. There was no constitutional case. That's it. And for him to say that it was violent, the words were violent, there's a violence to it. There's a violence to it. What is the point of using such hyper aggressive language? Like, it's just, we win, you lose. It's the law is not supposed to be a team sport. If people were honest, everyone should have voted to strike down Roe. The liberal justices, they had a conclusion they wanted, and they wrote to make their conclusion happen. But there is no legal justification for keeping Roe v. Wade, especially when you consider the 10th Amendment. Like, it's not in the Constitution. This is a power that's delegated on the federal level. Should be a state level thing. Should be state level. Now, I think they should have said that the unborn are protected under the 14th Amendment. Well, that's what I would have liked. It would have been a stretch for the case, though. Okay? That's what I would like. Equal protection and abortion just gone. I'm not going to be coy. That's what I want. But Joe, violence. Someone said, never trusted Roberts. And I'm glad that they struck Roberts down, his silliness down. And you know what? Why should, if your argument is bad and they just go and say point blank that it is bad, that there's no grounds for it, that they didn't even really attempt to make a good legal grounds for it, why can't we just straightforward say that? Do you expect them to be like, oh, we know that this will really hurt the women's really bad and people have all these... It's the law. Speak to the law. And it even shouldn't be a we won, we lose thing. And it does feel like we won. Don't get me wrong. People have been fighting for this for a very long time. But this was just the appropriate thing to do on legal grounds. Period. Everyone who sits on the bench should be trying to just play by the law, not play for a team. And people on the left have noted for a very long time that Roe v. Wade was not a good decision. And Ginsburg talked about how sweeping it was at the time. So why wouldn't undoing it also be very sweeping? It should not have been implemented, and it also should not have been upheld this long. And you know what? People on the right were still very concerned that it wasn't going to happen. And I'll be honest, I was getting nervous. I was getting nervous. But Joe's crazy. That's all I got to say about him. All I got to say about him. Last thing I'd like to talk about today is this. Well, there's another video I wanted to show, but I'm already over. So I'm going to play what Trump said because I didn't have any video from what he said on Friday. So I want to go ahead and play the happiness. He deserves a moment.
We've got some very big news, don't we? We have very big news. Maybe the biggest, right from the United States Supreme Court. Yesterday, the court handed down a victory for the Constitution, a victory for the rule of law, and above all, a victory for life. This breakthrough is the answer to the prayers of millions and millions of people, and these prayers have gone on for decades. For decades and decades they've been praying, and now those prayers have been answered to the generations of Americans in the pro-life movement, as well as countless constitutional conservatives. Your boundless love, sacrifice, and devotion has finally been rewarded in full. Congratulations, and great time.
So you know what? Part of me, to get a little conspiratorial, wonders if some of these Republicans, who so-called conservatives, aren't out very celebrating-ish, I guess. That's not a word, but you get what I'm trying to say. Well, they're not excited. They're not jubilant about all this going down. Because maybe they didn't think that it should have gone down. Maybe they're upset because we don't have this wedge issue, this big thing to point toward, and maybe it was a useful political thing. Maybe it was a useful political thing to say, hey, we got to get these justice on the court so we can make this happen, which it would have been devastating, I think, to have a case like Dobbs versus Jackson go before the Supreme Court and them still not to take down Roe. Because there are people saying if they can't take it down now, how's it going to go down? Besides, like, cloning Clarence Thomas and having someone to appoint him, like, you know, another 8 of them to the court or something, like, how would it go down? But I wonder, because there's some people who are very, very happy, very excited. But I've noticed some silent voices and some people who are like, oh, this is great, but, you know, there's a hard but from some people. So I wonder if this was something that some people on the right, some Republicans are like, oh, dang, that thing is gone now. And they're like, I didn't really think it'd be gone. And this is like a useful thing that we're not quite going to have. I wonder if some people feel like the battle is actually better than the reward of the sanctity of life. I wonder that. And I wonder if Trump got in, and because Trump, I don't think there's things he started to do that politicians come in and they'll promise to do things they don't deliver. Trump wasn't a politician, right? He was like, oh, these people want this. Okay, I'm going to see how I can make that happen. Oh, I promised to make this thing happen. I'm going to see how I can deliver on that. And that's not a normal thing for politicians, for a lot of politicians. So I wonder if we just got this sort of victory because Trump is just built different. And this is a legacy to be proud of for sure. And he should be proud. He should be very happy. And he's going to be upheld in high regards for a long time because of this, because he made the moves to get some good people on the court who would strike down Roe v. Wade, who would look to the law and would not be persuaded by the squishiness of Roberts, who acted more like a politician than a judge who loved the law. He doesn't always make the wrong decision, but he's made some pretty bad, big ones. And I'm glad that the court aggressively struck down his, concurrence or whatever, and addressed it and was like, bruh, that doesn't even make sense. They were aggressive. I don't disagree with Joe Scarborough that it was not sort of aggressive. I would say that was necessary. I'd say that was necessary. Why give any concessions to people who are egregiously wrong? And also, there's this episode of Angel where there's these puppets who are like demon puppets. And there was a guy who who created this show called Smile Time. And he had these puppets and he sold his soul, I guess, to make the show great. But the puppets were like demon puppets and they actually took over. And so people didn't know that they were actually controlling the man and stuff. And so there was a scene when they were talking about fighting like Angel. It was a show on the show Angels, the vampire or whatever. And so one of them started getting distracted with the kind of episode that they were going to make. And he's like, it's going to be about math, etc. And the other one started getting excited. And the main one in charge just yelled out, "We eat babies' lives." And so that's what I keep just hearing sometimes when I see these people talk about abortion. They're like, why couldn't they have been nicer as they eviscerated this law that didn't exist? Why couldn't they be nicer? And in my head, I just keep hearing, you eat babies' lives. That's what you're advocating for. So I'm sorry they didn't have enough time to just rub your ego and just swaddle your little bottom. I'm sorry, not sorry, actually. But anyway, God bless President Trump and all that he did. All that he did. And you know what? I don't know if they attacked Kavanaugh so badly. Like, there was the person who came from California to kill him. And people were heavily protesting outside of his house. People really hate Clarence Thomas, but I don't even know if people were protesting outside of his house like they were some of the others. Like, I know they were at Roberts. There was a sign or something about Amy Coney Barrett's kids where they go to school. But it seemed like they were attacking Kavanaugh the hardest. Maybe they felt like he was the one who they could really persuade. But I don't know. They tried to destroy him before. So maybe that solidified his stance that no, I'm going to do the right thing. But honestly, maybe all these people were just like, this was the legal reasoning that made sense. There was no other option. Anyway, guys, I gotta go. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate. If you would like to support, I appreciate anything you guys can do, whether it's $10, $20, go bigger, 50, 100, whatever you can do. I really, really appreciate. If you cannot, make sure that you guys are liking, that you're subscribing, that you're sharing, that you're telling other people Black Tea News. All that really does help. If you like to watch on Facebook, make sure that you're still subscribing on YouTube if you have a YouTube channel. It does really help if you guys subscribe across different platforms. And if you're on Facebook, make sure that you haven't just liked the page, that you're following the page, because they did change up things a bit. So they go by follows now. I'm on Instagram, I'm on YouTube, I'm on TikTok at Black Tea News and also True Black Tea. I post a lot on True Black Tea right now, but I'm still post on both accounts, so make sure you're following across both. On Twitter, it's at True Black Tea. That's the only handle that's really different besides my TikTok backup. Want to thank Brighter Michigan again. I'm in their studio, and if you guys want to watch the debate between the candidates running for governor, you will be able to watch that via stream through Black Tea News, also on Brighter Michigan page, but you can make sure that you watch on my stream. whichever is great. Make sure you guys check out the merchandise at the store, like the Crack is Whack. We'll make Crack Whack Again Trump 2024 shirt. And also we got these cool Roe is Dead shirts with Roe and Casey aborted and Life Wins. So check out all the goodies at blacktnews.com. God bless you.